broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of Gun Guy Radio is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Hello and welcome to Gun Guy Radio. This is the podcast that shines a positive light on the firearms lifestyle. I'm your host, Ryan Machad, and this is your weekly dose of positive firearms talk without the politics. This week, I'm joined by Nathaniel F. to discuss the new long guns coming out at SHOT Show 2016 in a few weeks. So as always, please consider supporting the Firearms Radio Network by shopping Amazon using our Amazon affiliate link at firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. A portion of your purchase will go towards helping the FRN create awesome pro-gun content like this show. So, Nathaniel, how you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Excellent. Good to have you back on the show after the Dream Rifles episode, which was very popular, by the way.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
So, before we head into the main topic, please check out the Patriot Patch Company and their current patches available for pre-order, the Hello, My Name Is, and the new T-shirts pre-orders. Check them out at patriotpatch.co.
Do you shop on Amazon? How about your spouse? Does your mom? Does your, company? Why not use the Firearms Radio Network's Amazon affiliate link next time you shop Amazon? Bookmark firearmsradio.tv/Amazon or click through the Amazon link in the right-hand corner of firearmsradio.tv. Get it? Got it? Amazon it!
So we're into the main topic now. Pre-SHOT Show discussion is something that I really, really enjoy. I always look forward to this time of year because you see the different websites coming out with, there's a gun rumored from this company, there's a gun rumored from that company. Just earlier this week, actually, Nathaniel, remember all of a sudden I messaged you frantically. I have these pictures of this gun from the Gun Show podcast, and I don't know what it is, and it looks like a Ruger American pistol, but I can't find any info on it. So I shot out messages to everybody with the link, and it's kind of like that nowadays, especially with the online media. It used to be just the print media, and you'd hear about it 3 months after SHOT Show, and now you hear about it sort of like 3 or 4 months before SHOT Show.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the fact that Ruger went to such extent to get their pistol out there, because their announcement date was December 31st, and they had pistols in the hands of distributors by like the 27th or something. It was something like that, 27th or 28th, I can't remember. And so these pictures were coming out, but I mean, that kind of spoils their announcement, is the problem. Which is okay. I'm glad that they got those pistols out to the distributors, but anyway, we're talking about long guns, not pistols. But
yeah, but still, it's interesting how Ruger does it in terms of they don't announce any. I seriously did not hear anything about this gun until some FFLs had it. I believe it actually was an FFL that leaked the pictures.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, we're not going to cover the Ruger American in this episode, but I'll just say what it is. It's basically a Ruger Glock that was designed for the Army's modular handgun system program, and they just released it to the public. So that's pretty cool. Well,
it seems like with
too
Ruger,
small for this episode,
right? With Ruger, with any of their products, they basically have they really do a good job of keeping it quiet until they have guns in the hands of distributors ready to go out to FFLs. So that way, when the gun gets announced, you can go to your gun shop that day and buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the that gun had been in development apparently for like a couple of years, and people were talking about how back in 2013 I shot one of their prototype Ruger American pistols. And I was, I kept it quiet. It's like, I guess they just know, like, whom they're going to have as testers and who's reliable, right? Who's not going to spill the beans. So that's good for them. So
we've basically, over on Handgun Radio, I did an episode with Weird Beard about the guns for SHOT Show, the handguns. So on Gun Guy Radio here, we're going to do basically talking about what we've seen that's rumored or confirmed coming up at SHOT Show.
Yeah.
So we've divided it up. Nathaniel, you divided it into the AR category for yourself, and then I have the other stuff category, right?
Well, there's three. We've got AKs and things related to AKs, and then ARs, and then random other things. because it's so much of the market is AKs and ARs now. So many of the announcements are just new AKs and ARs. So
now, do you think? I've heard some people say that this year is the year of the pistol caliber carbine. Do you think that's accurate?
That's interesting. I remember. There's like two ways I could answer this. Basically, no. The reason I don't think it is because pistol caliber carbines have never done well. The only ones that have ever done well have been the extremely cheap ones. So the two that have had a significant amount of market success and are still being produced are the Kel-Tec Sub 2000, which I think retails for usually under $500, and the High Point carbine. And the High Point carbine obviously is like a $250, $300 gun. So that's really the secret, I think, for pistol caliber carbines, because why would anyone buy a $600 or $700 or $800 pistol caliber carbine when they could buy a $600 Smith & Wesson M&P 15?
Right.
Basically. You know, and there are some people who have answers to that, but you guys have to understand that you're a minority. If you feel that way, you're a minority. So the market just doesn't tend to respond to those kinds of guns. Doesn't mean there won't be any successful ones released, but year of the pistol caliber carbine, that's strong language.
So we'll start off with the first one I have here, and this is the triple barrel shotguns from Chiappa. Now, in my opinion, Chiappa has been known for somewhat dubious quality, so we'll just kind of keep that in mind as we're talking about their guns. I have to give them credit for being innovative. Not that they themselves sometimes come up with the designs. I believe sometimes it's a different company, and they're just kind of the importers, maybe.
Yeah.
But, like, for instance, this year, the triple barrel shotgun. So you had the triple threat the last year, and I believe that was in 12 gauge.
It was in 12.
Yeah, and this year you're going to have the 20 gauge and the 28 gauge. Mm-hmm. Now, the 28 gauge, I kind of like. My brother has a single shot 28 gauge, and it's really good for shorter range stuff, and for really like tough game birds. But the MSRP just kind of blows me away. $2,079 and $2,039 for the 28 gauge, and I mean, you can get a double barrel from one of like the Italian manufacturers for what, like $400 maybe?
Yeah, there's a reason for that. So, have you ever wondered why double rifles are really expensive? Besides posh European gentlemen,
because they have to be regulated by hand, right?
Well, yeah. So the barrels are all like soldered or brazed together, and for a rifle like that, those barrels have to be in a very specific position to shoot to the same point of impact at a given range. Now, shotguns, being double-barreled, don't really have that problem as much because you're shooting a spread. So that's why you can get $400 or $500 brand new double-barreled shotguns. But if you look at the ones that are below that price, by the way, they actually mount the barrels differently. They don't mount them in that sort of normal soldered fashion.
Right.
But you look at something like a triple threat, well, now you have 3 barrels instead of 2 that need to be soldered together in exactly the right way. So I bet that's why your MSRP is that high.
Didn't Bacal come out with some of the double rifles that were really affordable in like 30-06 and some .60 by 3.9 a while back?
Yes.
Like $700.
Yeah, and if you look at those guns, the barrels are mounted in a completely different way than the traditional style.
Okay, so I was going to say, I remember reading about those.
It's that traditional style of we've got an intermediate band that's being soldered to all 3 barrels, and they're soldered in exactly the right position. So I'm almost positive that's why the triple threat is as expensive as it is.
Okay. Now, the Kel-Tec RDB, this is one... Didn't this come out... Is this the one that has the AK-type furniture on it? Or is this the newer one?
So there's two guns that are basically the same action. The Kel-Tec RDB is sort of their follow-on to the RFB. It's an intermediate caliber as opposed to a .308 gun, and it is has a different mechanism than the RFB. The M43 was the one that had sort of quasi-Soviet style furniture.
Oh, okay.
And that, I think they made like 2 of those, something like that. But the RDB is in like pre-production right now, so we might get an announcement from SHOT that they're going for sale because they're like wrapping up their evaluation period. They sent them out to a bunch of testers and they got their feedback, and So now we're maybe going to have an announcement that they're going on for sale. Of course, it's Kel-Tec, so when they say, yes, they're for sale now, it's like, well, are they really?
So there'll be 6 available in the country next year.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
I found it really interesting. I know InRange TV did a video on the RDB, I believe, and they were kind of impressed with it. I mean, for Kel-Tec, that's the thing. Some of their designs are really awesome, but you just can't get them.
So George Kellgren's a really, really smart guy. He's really clever, and he has come up. He's like one of the most inventive people in small arms right now. So I have a lot of good things to say about him personally. I don't have a lot of good things to say about like Kel-Tec's quality control and that sort of thing. So are the prototypes, basically the pre-production models that have been sent out to reviewers, are those good quality guns? Yeah, they might be. But then you have things like production, the PLR-16, which one's the one that's the
pistol?
The SU-16. Well, the PLR-16 is the same design, but you've had like production SU-16s and things like that. Their bolts break, like just out of the blue, because they're like Kel-Tec's quality control, at least historically speaking, has not been as good as. I think they know that though. I think that Kel-Tec knows that's a failing of theirs, and so hopefully they've made some real steps to make this particular gun not only come out to the market on time and in quantity, but also with the quality control that it needs to be successful.
Right.
Because it is a good design. And if it sounds like I'm rooting or being soft on Kel-Tec, that's because their designs are really cool.
No, I like Kel-Tec. I personally, like when people hate on Kel-Tec all the time, I'm kind of like, you guys got to understand that the bigger picture. I mean, obviously they're not like a big company like Glock that is producing, hundreds of thousands of guns. But, I mean, they are thinking outside the box. They're coming up with guns. Some are awesome. Some, like the KSG, I'm kind of like, whatever. And
the hand destroyer.
Right, exactly. But the thing is, it seems like the only issue they have is market availability, as well as having problems translating the simple design to a larger mass production scale.
Well, yeah, I've heard it described as when you're buying a Kel-Tec, you're buying a prototype.
You're being a beta tester.
Yeah, which I think is interesting because they don't seem to iterate as much with their designs as other companies do. And when there's a problem, it doesn't seem like they go back to the drawing board and fix it. And I don't know why that is.
Right.
But I will say that I do have an email thread with a bunch of my friends that I just send around, and everybody contributes a brand new way that Kel-Tecs fail every now and again, whenever they see it. Oh, look, I found this video of a Kel-Tec that exploded for no reason. Or whatever it is. So we have, they definitely got a lot of problems in terms of their quality control, but I'm hoping that they're making it better. And I think they know that's something that they need to work on.
So the next two here we'll kind of lump together. They're both from Chiappa. The Double Badger 20 gauge and 22 long rifle. This one kind of reminds me of my old Savage 24F in 30-30 20 gauge. Mm-hmm. That gun was awesome. And this one, as much as I would like to think this is going to be really amazing, I've heard of issues with the Little Badger, with people having the fore ends crack right off of them. Mm-hmm. And this one is wood, so it wouldn't surprise me if they used, like, pressed together wood, maybe. I don't know. I really like the idea. I like the concept. I'm just worried that Chiappa, the execution, may not be where it should be.
Well, look at the way they mount the barrels in that. You'll notice it's completely different from the triple threat. So that's how they're getting that low MSRP.
Right.
It's because they're not soldering the barrels together.
But that's high. That's even higher than the Savage, I think.
Oh, I think they've put it there because they know you can sell it.
I mean, the Savage, I don't remember what the MSRP was on it.
Was it Savage 24?
Yeah, I'm looking here on Gunbroker, and now they're going for probably more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping Chiappa sort of gets their act together a little bit. One of the things that really disappointed me about the Rhino, which I thought was really interesting, if only just because it looks super cool, was every single Rhino I have ever handled had a different trigger pull.
Right.
Like a massively different trigger pull. And it's like, I don't understand how that. There were some that were great. Like, oh my god, some of them had this fantastic double action, and then some of them would be like, I feel like I can hardly pull this back. So we'll see. I mean,
well, and it's aggravating for me because I like I like the designs that Chiappa comes up with and they import. Like,
yeah, it's kind of a similar situation with Keltec.
Yeah, exactly. Like they have the M1 carbine in 9mm.
Oh man, that thing is a dog.
But in theory, it's awesome.
Yeah, in theory, that's a great idea, but that thing is such a
But
dog.
in practice, everybody I've seen fire one has been like, this thing is a piece of junk, and it's just like, I want to cry. That's awesome. You got to do it right.
Yeah, there seem like so many obvious things about that. There seem like so many obvious things about them. I remember the first time I ever handled one of those 9mm Chiappa M carbines, and it was like, I was like, why did they do it this way? Like, this makes no sense. Like, that was my initial impression of it. It's like, it's not that hard to just make a cast, like, breech block that looks vaguely M1 carbine-y.
Right.
It's a blowback gun. Like,
I mean, they made it take Beretta magazines, which is all right. I mean, you can get, like, the military surplus ones and stuff like that. But a smarter way would have been Glock.
Oh, yeah.
Make it take Glock 9mm mags.
Glock mags, bro.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
And they work really well.
Right.
They're really fantastic.
And you could buy the Magpul magazines and even get them cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the other one, the Chiappa Kodiak Cub, is basically, Nathaniel described it earlier as
it's
a Marlin
39A.
39A takedown.
Mm-hmm. If you like those guns, that may be a good gun. I'm not sure. Again, it's Chiappa, so. But I have significant reservations about a takedown gun where the receiver comes open.
Right.
Like that. So it's like I stuff it in my backpack and then, oh no, I need to put it back together because there's a squirrel or something I want to shoot. And it's like, it's filled with lint. Like, I'm just imagining that receiver just filled with lint.
Now, the next one here, the CZ Scorpion carbine, I've had quite a bit of experience with the CZ Scorpion, the Evo 3 pistol in 9mm, and now they're coming out with the carbine, which I think is awesome, and that's kind of why I asked you that first question, Nathaniel, is do you think this is the year of the pistol caliber carbine?
No, I think in the show notes it's going to say this is the year of the AK Part 2. Because there's so much AK crap coming out.
Now,
that was, yeah.
Do you think they came out with this thing to appease the people who kind of wanted the longer 9mm Scorpion but didn't want to have to go through the whole thing of getting the stamp and everything?
I think that CZ developed the Evo as an MP5 killer.
Yeah.
And then they kind of realized that, oh, the MP5's already dead. It's been killed by the AR-15. And now they're trying to find an alternative market for it. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, that's why I think this gun exists.
I think the big thing, though, for them, let me put it from my point of view, okay? So my friend, the Mad Aussie, he was going to buy either the CZ or the MPX, right? Mm-hmm. SIG kind of muddled the introduction of the MPX, and CZ didn't. CZ came out with a gun that is incredibly affordable for what it is. You would expect it to be more.
Yeah, what's the MSRP on that pistol?
Like $800.
Yeah, $800.
Yeah.
This is all the problem of with these pistol caliber carbines. You're all competing against basically the Smith & Wesson M&P15.
Right.
And that's a $650-ish gun.
But when you look at this as a person who has, if you were just some guy going through CDNN maybe, right? Mm-hmm. You're going through, you're looking at all these guns, $1,000, $2,000, $1,999, You see this, you don't expect it to be $800 MSRP.
Well, see, so it's going to sound like I'm getting down on pistol caliber carbines. I just don't think they have a lot of market viability. For somebody like you who wants a pistol caliber carbine, or anybody who wants a pistol caliber carbine because they just do, yeah, I think it'll take off with those people, at least within that circle. I think it's got a folding stock. It's got a bunch of features that are really good. The rifle versions, if you look at them, they don't actually look that bad. They look pretty decent. And normally you have this weird thing with pistol caliber carbines where they have this like huge barrel sticking out the front, and it looks really awkward. But the Scorpions don't look that bad with regards to, they have kind of a longer forend, and they look a little bit more reasonable. They look a little bit more attractive. So I don't think it's a bad offering. The market viability of that concept tends to be pretty low, especially given what it's competing against.
Well, and the one thing I will say is the Mad Aussie has the pistol version. That thing is incredibly accurate. The sights that they include on the top rail are fantastic. They are sights that if I had an AR, I would probably take the sights that they have, just buy them and mount them on the rail on my AR. They're rugged, they're protected, they're a nice peep sight. I really like them. And the other thing is the magazines. How much do you think one of these magazines costs? A 30 round from the CZ store.
I think they were like $20, something
$19.95.
Like yeah, I'm awesome.
And
I got
they
that
are
on the
fantastic.
head.
Yeah, and they are fantastic magazines.
Yeah,
They're easy to load. He's never had a single jam. We've put probably close to 1,200 rounds through that gun.
Well, that's what I think they did right with that release. They did a lot of things right with that Evo release. Like we were talking about with Ruger earlier, basically they when they said the guns were available, people started getting them.
Right.
I don't know if there might have been a little bit of delay there, but it wasn't very long until I saw people picking them up at the store and started seeing them in stores. So, and then they made the magazines available. That's one of the things where a lot of these new gun platforms, if they use a new magazine, they just end up shriveling on the vine because if you can't get magazines for them, then you're not going to tell your buddy to buy one.
Right.
You know? So, that was something they did very right with that platform. So, I definitely, I think it's a neat gun. I know that my co-writer Alex tested, I think, one of the early versions of it, and he had a lot of bad things to say about it, but I haven't heard that from anyone else. So
I hated the selector. John actually took and cut off the side of the selector that was rubbing up against his thumb.
Yeah, I think that was one of the complaints I heard from Alex was that the selector, the ambidextrous selector, had a tendency to rub your finger.
And from what I understand, CZ has come out with a replacement switch that you can buy and put in there.
CZ's pretty responsive about that, and I don't know if that's just the relationship of their American-based custom shop and the whole company or what. But
now, the Ithaca bolt-action rifles, this is one I was kind of surprised about because Ithaca, when I think of that company, I think of the Model 37 shotgun.
You think of that company not being around anymore.
Yeah, basically.
Well, I think the name changed hands a bunch of times, didn't it?
Right. No, I believe somebody bought the company and...
Dave Dluback bought the company in 2007.
Okay. And I remember hearing good things about him he was a shooter and he really liked the company and wanted to get it going with the classic stuff, but also improving on other stuff, is right?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, you know his name.
I know his name because I looked it up before the show.
Let's see. Ithaca Gun Company.
I sound really smart when I'm on one of these radio shows because I look things up for you.
Now, this is from Richard Johnson's website, Guns, Holsters, and Gear. He says, Ithaca Gun Company opened shop in Ithaca, New York in 1883. Since that time, the company has changed hands and locations several times. The current owners purchased the company's assets in 2007, and at that time, the company was already located in Ohio.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So this just looks like a nice entry into the bolt-action hunting rifle market. It'll be available in .308 Winchester and .300 Win Mag. The company will offer 2 barrel lengths, 20 inches and 24 inches, with a variety of trigger options available. So,
what I liked that, from what it appears from the graphic, is that they're going to be offering the 300 and the 300 Win Mag are not going to be a single action length. They're going to have a short action version for .308.
Okay.
I like that. There's a lot of it's not anything new, but there's a ton of gun companies that don't do that. Like Tikka doesn't make a 308 length action. I don't think Howa makes a 308 length action. I was actually looking at this recently. They don't make dedicated action lengths for that caliber. They just put in a block or something.
Now, this next one here isn't so much of a surprise of the rifle, but the chambering. Savage Rifles in .338 Federal. Now, I have to admit, Nathaniel, you're more of a cartridge person than I am, even though I kind of consider myself a little bit of a cartridge nerd. And the .338 Federal, what is it? It's 185 grain bullet doing 2,750 feet per second.
You can load it with anything from 160s to you could put a 250 in it if you really wanted. It's just a .338 bore, so about 8.6 millimeters, and it's just a necked out .308. I sort of wonder kind of why it exists, because .358 Winchester already exists, and I don't think it did that well on the market, which is why this is notable. Because Savage is going to start chambering guns in it. It's there's almost nothing on the market that's in that caliber. So.
I will say I've always been impressed with the Savage rifles. They always produce a pretty solid gun for a decent price.
They know how to make guns that are good, that are not very expensive.
Weren't they the ones that first came up with the AccuTrigger concept? I know they had it, and then some other companies came out with it.
Yeah, they were as far as I know, the earliest people to put that on a rifle. So,
and it's really, I know my brother has the Ruger American in 7mm 08, and it has that sort of AccuTrigger type thing where you depress the trigger within the trigger.
Yeah, I was immediately when they announced the Ruger American, which was, I don't remember what SHOT Show it was, but when they announced the Ruger American, I was immediately like, oh, that's designed to compete with the Savage.
Exactly.
It's designed to be cheap and ugly.
It works. It's just not the most attractive.
Nope.
So Nathaniel,
it definitely beat Savage at being ugly, by the way.
So I'm going to cut you loose here on the AKs and AK-like objects, the Palmetto State Armory AK rifles.
Yeah, so we've got a bunch of AK stuff coming out this year, and I don't even have like a complete list here, but so I think it was last year, Rob from AK Operators Union declared 2015 was going to be the year of the AK, and that kind of was true, but now it looks like 2016 is going to be part 2. Because we've got people are just getting more interested in the platform. The AK is one of my personal favorites, though you wouldn't know it to read my writing. But it is one of my personal favorites. I like them more than AR-15s, frankly. And so I think a lot of people are just getting interested in it. You've got Palmetto State Armory. Finally, American manufacturers are kind of learning how to make AKs, which I think is really good. There's a lot more. I just did a review on Build Your Own AK, which is a book that was released recently detailing how to build, an AK at home, like either from a flat or just populate a barrel or do whatever you need to do. And so people are learning how to do that. That information is sort of slowly but surely growing in the American market and that's allowing better guns to be made at lower prices. You've got like the DDI, and other companies that their names have vacated my brain right now. So Palmetto State Armory looks like they're going to get into this game. And they've got 4150 barrels, which are good. I'm hoping that's chrome lined, but it's hard to do in the United States because, I think there's a fixed number of chrome lining licenses, like chroming licenses in the U.S., something like that. I don't know much about that law, but basically it's tricky to get to where you can do hard chroming legally. So I don't know that barrel is going to be chrome lined. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, given that they're not advertising that, but it would be really nice if it was. And then they're coating their bolt carrier groups with nickel boron. They've got supposedly a super nice trigger in there. They're putting Magpul furniture all over it. And then one of the interesting versions they've got is a version for just under $1,000 that has an Aimpoint H1 on a sight mount. So you can get your Aimpoint, which is, that's like a $500-600 sight. And then you've got that on a mount, and then you can buy that rifle, set up that way from the factory, which seems pretty cool. I'm not the biggest fan of the Magpul furniture. It just doesn't look right to me, but I'm more of a purist. I have a Russian optic on my AK. That's how much of a purist I am.
I was going to say, I'm someone who likes the AK that looks all battle-worn and everything.
Yeah. But it's cool. I'm always rooting for any company that decides they're going to go into AKs. Now, that doesn't mean that they all end up with a happy ending, but I think it's great. I want American manufacturers to get more into AKs, and so I'm excited that Palmetto State Armory is trying to do that, and I wish them luck.
Now, briefly touch on what's this AKB-15 that Polinar Tactical, friends of the show, by the way.
Yeah.
What was this?
This is a gun. I believe it is out of Slovenia, I think.
Yes.
And I think this is also from Slovenia, but I think so. The AKB-15, basically, what they're doing is there's a couple of guns right now that are trying to do this. They're taking the logical conclusion of these ideas where we're going to combine features of the AR-15 and the AK, except they're reusing a lot of the existing AK architecture, actually. So this gun uses existing M70 receivers. Zastava M70, that's basically an RPK receiver, with existing bolt carrier group, existing fire control group, existing safety, and all that stuff. And it adds to the top of that. It replaces the rear sight block, and it adds to the top of that this aluminum railed chassis, basically. And then you can mount actually Remington ACR stocks to the back of it, which is pretty cool. And that whole upper rail that's on the top, I don't think it's 100% uninterrupted. It has like a part that you can't mount things to it, but it's one unit. And I think that's actually a pretty good idea. Basically, you end up with a gun that has a lot of the features of an AR-15, but it's built on an AK. I don't think this is really a platform that's necessarily... Well, I hope it would be successful in the civilian market for them, but I think my advice to them would be to try to make this platform take as little modifications to the original rifle as possible, make those modifications be as easy as possible, and then sell it as a kit.
Right.
And I would sell it as a kit, try to get like military and LE customers interested in it, because you have just so many AKs running around in the world, and there may be people and it's kind of a depressed economy worldwide right now. So, people are going to want these kind of new tactical type guns. And if you can make this cheaper than buying a new rifle, I think a lot of people would be interested in that. Now, the big downside of it is they said it's, I think 100 grams heavier than a Zastava. But that comes out to an unloaded weight of about 8.6 pounds and then a loaded weight of about 10.5, which is pretty hefty, with a steel AK magazine and the relatively heavier AK ammunition. Even without any accessories or sights or anything on it, you're ending up with a gun that's got quite a bit of extra weight to it. So that's going to be your big downside. But I don't think that'll matter if they can make it something that people can actually retrofit their existing guns to.
Now, what if somebody wants to buy a machine gun? Can they buy a Galil Ace rifle with the third pinhole?
Well, all of those are going to have to go back to the factory. Well, the pistols are the ones with the pinhole. The rifles haven't come into the country yet, as far as I know.
They'll probably have the pinhole too.
No, that's gonna delay the rifle release. That I imagine that a lot of those receivers are just going to get recycled and turned into select fire guns for the international arms market. So
basically an improved AK, right?
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, the Galil Ace is this Israeli improved version of the Galil, which is based on the AK, and it has a left side reciprocating charging handle, kind of like a SCAR, but in a different position. And it has uses AK magazines. The ones that are on the international market, they have ones that use 5.56 Galil magazines, but the pistols that came into the U.S. market are all in 7.62 by 39. And then it has a kind of this like plastic. It's sort of the same kind of architecture as the Uzi Pro, where you have sort of the old receiver, and that's sort of smushed into a plastic lower, which saves them a little bit of weight. It makes the Galil Ace lighter than the Galil was, which is good because the Galil was really heavy. And then you have they have some architecture on the top that allows for, they have like a rail on the dust cover, and they have some like an additional stabilizer in the dust cover to keep the dust cover, from moving. And basically they started importing these Galil Ace pistols in 7.62 by 39, and it turned out that they still had the third pinhole in their receiver, which is the pinhole for the auto sear. And that has been traditionally, with regards to the ATF, the definition of an AK machine gun. If it has that pinhole, it's a machine gun. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's not. So they had to recall all of those pistols. It was very ignominious. Probably going to delay the release of the Galil carbine to the U.S. market quite a bit, but hopefully we'll still see semi-autos at SHOT Show.
Now, CMMG has kind of been getting into the game a little bit here with their Mutant, and I know that was the talk of the show last year, and now they're coming out with a little bit of an altered version, the Krinkov, right?
Yeah. So they've got this, quote-unquote Krinkov, sort of short-barreled AKS-74U style Mutant, which I think is pretty cool. The Mutant's an interesting gun. I personally am not terribly interested in it just because I don't really want a gun like that. But if you're somebody who wants something that feeds from AK magazines and shoots 7.62 by 39, but is also an AR-15, then that's actually a pretty good, or AR style gun. That's actually probably the best thing that's on the market right now, because I actually did a post on this a while back, which I will put in the show notes. But there's some special things that have to happen with the AK's magazine. It's got some support that needs to have on the front of the magazine, and that a lot of guns that have been designed for AK magazines don't have that. Things like the SIG 556R and the MGI Hydra in 7.62x39 that uses AK magazines, they don't have that support there. So the magazine's not properly supported because they're going off of what the AR-15 does, where the AR-15 just has a magazine and a chute and then there's a catch. And there's not really anything complicated going on in there. With the AK's interface between its magazines a little bit more sophisticated. And what I liked about the CMMG Mutant is that it actually supports the magazine properly. So it's very good for magazine reliability to have that. So
it's basically an AKR.
Kind of. I mean, yeah, they've grafted the AK's magazine and magazine interface system to a shortened AR-10.
Now, this next one from Krebs, I don't even know what this is.
The Krebs ass neck? Am I allowed to say that on this show?
I think you are.
Thanks, smart Krebs. So yeah, this is a carbine from Krebs it's a short-barreled gun. I imagine they'll bring it to SHOT Show, but I don't actually know that. Some of the prototypes are in 5.56, and then there was another one that was in 7.6. I think it was in 7.62x39.
That's what it says, yeah.
Yeah, okay. It used AK magazines, and they introduced a kicker lever, which is something that was designed in Russia for the AK-12, and Mark Krebs has probably come up with it independently, or at least been paying very good attention. And this lever that when you flip the magazine release, that lever comes forward and kicks the magazine out of the magwell, which is nice if you want to do speed loading, because the AKs have always been historically a little bit harder. That's why that whole like weird AK reloading style came about, where you take the new magazine and you kick the old magazine out with it.
Right.
Because the AK mags don't like drop free or anything. So.
I'm terrible at reloading the AK. It's like just handing it to like a monkey and saying, "Here, reload this."
I actually used to shoot an AK in IPSC, so I got pretty good at it. I'm all rusty now. I haven't done it in ages.
I can never. The problem I seem to encounter is I can never hook the front of the mag up where it needs to be. I always miss it.
Yeah, that's a bit of muscle memory that you just have to get used to. I remember when I used to shoot that thing in competition. If you go on the line in like a casual IPSC match, like a local IPSC match with an AK, people will start like cheering for you.
Now, what is this Handle Scar 47? I've also never heard of this one.
Oh, okay. So I actually talked with these guys, and there's some cool stuff that they showed me, but they never quite got the authorization to allow me to talk about it. So that's where I'm leaving that. But the Scar 47 is a lower receiver that takes it's the exact same thing as like the CMMG Mutant. It's a lower receiver, takes AK mags, turns your Scar into a 7.62x39 gun. You need a barrel and a bolt to go with it, but that's their idea, is to turn the Scar H, not the L, turn the Scar H into something that can use AK magazines and shoot 7.62x39. I don't know that much more about it. Handle has hinted that a lot of the stuff they've been doing recently has been like at the request of SOCOM, but how many times have we heard that before?
Right.
But it wouldn't surprise me, honestly, because there was I can't remember the name of the program now, the program that produced the MK-47 or the Mark 47 from Knight's Armament. That one,
yeah,
AR-47, whatever the hell they called it. That one was also at the request of SOCOM. So
everything's at the request of SOCOM.
Yeah.
So let's move into the world of ARs.
Yeah, boring guns.
You've heard my quote, apparently.
This is where it gets fun. Oh, no, I feel exactly the same way.
Now, the LWRC M6 IC, could they come up with any more acronyms?
I think LWRC used to stand for Leitner Weiss Rifle Company, and then they changed it to something else because they kicked Paul Leitner Weiss out, and then they don't like him anymore.
But he's awesome.
He's trolled a whole lot of internet forums. So the M6 is we're gonna break this down. So the M6 was their piston operated or op-rod gun that was based on an AR-15, and then ICs for individual carbine. So they had the individual carbine was one of their models, and I guess they've combined those two into they don't distinguish between them anymore, or they call the IC, it used to be just the IC. They call that the M6 IC because they entered the Army's individual carbine or the improved carbine competition, and then DI for everything for Leitner Weiss Rifle Company dropping everything they have ever stood for and going to direct impingement.
I need to let it be known, though, I do really, really respect and like Paul Leitner Wise. He suffers fools not very readily, and I really enjoy watching him tell people when they try to come up to him and say, like, oh, well, I know this about the AR, and Paul's like, oh, really?
I don't know that much about him, but you could get Daniel Waters to talk about him for a while. Every time his name comes up with Daniel Waters gets a little bit excited. Anyway, so I think he was involved in some of that drama. But you probably know that I think DI is just fine. I don't really think an op rod is necessary in an AR-15. In some cases, it makes it worse, but not always.
Well, wasn't there a time period where everybody was talking about, oh yeah, we got to have a piston system, and then all of a sudden it was like, yep, piston system's gone.
Yeah, well, so I think we can blame three things. I think we can blame the early AR-15 entry into Vietnam, which was screwed up for a bunch of reasons that we'll have to save for another episode.
Right.
I think we can blame those really horrible early AR-15s from the 1990s that had like cast receivers and all manner of horrible, awful things going on. And then I think we can blame the movie The Green Berets with John Wayne, because that movie had a scene where John Wayne takes this literally Mattel AR-15 toy, like a toy that made to look like an M16 by Mattel. It was the Mattel Marauder M16, I think was the name of this toy. He takes this and he throws it against a tree and it breaks into a million pieces. And I think those three reasons are why people think the M16 is the bad. And so because of that, people have been trying to get away from... I'm being half sarcastic there, but that's not all that far from the truth. So I think that's why people have been trying to get away from DI. Not because DI really has all these problems necessarily, though it is dirtier. And that's why I kind of think it's superfluous to try to put an operating rod in an AR-15. Somebody on the Firearm blog on the article for the M6 ICDI said, does this mean that they're admitting that DI is just as good or that they've lost? And I was like, yes. Because the market just doesn't really respond to piston upward guns anymore.
Well, and are the SIG guns, the SIG ARs, are those piston?
I want to say...
The 5.16 and the 7.16?
I believe the 5.16 is an op rod gun. But I think they also have a DI now.
Yeah, the 5.56, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Or something
like that. Yeah, I think they also have a DI gun now because nobody buys piston guns.
Okay, the 5.16 is a piston system, and then the Mad Aussie has the 7.16, and I will say that he has, so it's basically the AR-10, 6 Hours AR-10, and that thing, I've never felt a rifle pivot in my hand. And these
pivot, like rotate around it.
Yes, rotate.
Okay.
And for some reason, with the 7.16, it is a short. Okay, right here, short stroke push rod, rotating bolt. It just feels like it wants to pivot in my hands.
Like about the axis of the barrel, like it wants to roll.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe you're like really strong rifling interaction forces or something.
I don't know. It's strange, but I've never. It's just a weird recoil impulse.
Huh. Yeah. That happens to a minor degree on all guns because of the rifling, but that particular phenomenon you're describing sounds pretty strange.
It's very strange, but I don't know. I've never had a problem with. I mean, the gas guns, the direct impingement ones. You just got to clean them right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. In my experience, you don't even need to clean them. I've done some really horrible things to my Colt, and they seem to work. Anyway, that's enough about LWRC.
So the MSBS, what one is this?
That's the Redom. It's from Redom, Poland.
Okay.
It's a Polish. It's not a SCAR clone. It's actually a lot closer to a Remington ACR, but it's that kind of gun, like sort of a next generation rifle type dealie. I know the guys over it, or at least the guys who come over here for shot every year. I know them, and they are really nice people, and they've got actually a pretty good rifle going on. I think it's based almost explicitly on the Magpul Masada, but it's got a lot of things going on that are improvements, and I think it's a better rifle, and they want to bring it to the U.S., we'll see if that happens or not. I hope it does. So we'll see if there's the SHOT Show. They said they're going to try and get the Army trials done, Polish Army trials done. And, once that's finished, they're going to try and bring them to the U.S. In pistol form first, and then carbines. And so I'll talk to these guys when I go to SHOT Show and see if there's any update on that. So I'd like to see him in the U.S. for 2016, definitely.
Now, LMT just recently went down to New Zealand.
Yeah, so LMT has had a lot of luck down in New Zealand because they won the designated marksman rifle contract in, I want to say, 2010, something like that. And then now they have won the standard New Zealand Defence Force rifle contract. So all of they aren't Steyr-Rogs, they're, I think, Australian-made. All of the Australian-made AUGs that the New Zealand Defence Force uses, they may have been built locally now that I think about it. But anyway, the down under AUGs, all of those are going to get replaced by this new LMT rifle system, which we released a video, and it wasn't the LMT CQB-16. It was something that was kind of based on it. It was some other new configuration. And when the New Zealand Defence Force released that video and reposted it on the Firearm Blog, we got contacted by LMT, and they went, yeah, the New Zealand Defence Force wasn't supposed to show that gun yet. That's actually a part of our new lineup that we're going to be showing at SHOT 2016. So we don't know what it's called yet, but yeah, that'll be interesting.
It's interesting they moved from the AUG to the LMT. They're going to ARs.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. This kind of comes to the whole bullpup debate, because bullpups started getting adopted sort of worldwide with the late 70s, kind of the 80s, that kind of time frame. And then now you're watching people move away from bullpups. And sometimes that's kind of coincidental, and sometimes it's not. I think New Zealand's one of the first, I don't think they are the first, but they're one of the first countries to go from a bullpup to a conventional. France is going to be right on their heels. France is holding their competition right now to replace the FAMAS. And from what I understand, there are no bullpups in that competition. So the next rifle they adopt is going to be a conventional gun.
You think it'll be a SCAR?
I kind of hope for their sake it's going to be a SCAR.
I bet you, Fabrique Nationale.
I would really not want them to adopt I would feel really bad for them if they adopted the ARX 160. That gun's not very good. Anyway, yeah, Beretta, I said it. They got really mad at us when we pointed out that their gun wasn't very good. Anyway, so so that's interesting. And then Britain is going to have to move away from the L85. They've had kind of a soap opera regarding that gun. And then I strongly suspect that the next British rifle will be a conventional. So what's going to happen to the bullpup?
Didn't some British units adopt the LMT 308?
Yeah, actually, the British Army's standard designated marksman rifle is the LMT. I can never remember the acronym. It's MWS, the LMT MWS, I believe, is the name of the gun. It's their 308 AR-10-like object. And I have heard nothing but fantastic things about that gun. I've heard that it is just fabulous. It's a bit heavy. I've held them. But you know what? If it works and it does what they need it to do, then more power to them.
Well, it's funny because the FAL used to be referred to as the right arm or the free world, and nowadays it seems like the AR is. Yeah.
It's the AR has really had a lot of staying power. It's not going anywhere, guys. But it was interesting. I talked to the guys who were actually running the New Zealand Small Arms Program, and I asked them what they thought about bullpups. They'd been using the AUG for 30 years at that point. I kind of asked them what they thought about bullpups, and I expected them to say, because my opinion about bullpups had always been that, yeah, they're different from conventional guns, but that's more of a training issue than realistically anything else. Like, if your magazine goes in the back instead of the front, then your muscle memory is going to be all screwed up if you've been trained on AR-15s your whole life. But when I talked to them, their opinion about bullpups was like really lukewarm. Like, they're okay. Sort of like, well, if they've been using bullpups for the past 30 years and they're not like head over heels with them, maybe bullpups are not that great. I just said something that'll probably piss a lot of people off.
So, real quickly, Colt Canada, the MMR.
Yeah, so the Colt Canada MMR, this is an update to their IUR, which had some features that were specific to, I believe, their special operations groups. had requested this or that feature. And then the MMR is an update to that, where they have removed they've lightened it a little bit. They've removed the boss. There was this boss sticking out from the bottom of the rail where a grenade launcher could rest against that boss, and then you have the grenade launcher exerting its force on the upper receiver directly, because that's all one forged upper receiver. It's like an LMT's upper in that respect, but they had this shelf that was sitting there that the grenade launcher could rest upon, and then your grenade launcher isn't like hitting your access pin, or it isn't hitting the mounting system that you're using. It's just hitting that part of the upper receiver. So they removed that on the MMR to make it a bit lighter, because that was a specific request from their special operations people. And then they have M-LOK slots on it. Pretty generic looking AR-15, but the monolithic forged upper receiver is an interesting idea. So the Cobalt Kinetics, you inserted this in here. Now, what's the whole story with this? They're a company that they make really funky looking AR-15s that are billet milled, and then they have some interesting, and I'm not sure terribly useful, features that they add. So one of them that they had was a bolt release that was ambidextrous and replaced and duplicated on the other side the forward assist. So instead of a forward assist on one side, you had what looked like forward assists on both sides, but they were actually bolt releases.
And I am in the same camp as Paul Leitner-Wise, and I think the bolt assist makes things worse pretty much every time.
I'm agnostic about it. Anyway, but that's
two of them. They have two of them.
Well, they're not forward assists anymore. That's the thing. They're bolt releases now. So it's like the bolt release on the left side, except now they're in the same. And it's very strange. And then the other thing that they've come up with is the BAMF or BAMF, I guess. And that is a very strange looking AR-15 upper receiver. And then they also had the Evolve, which was, did the BAMF have that weird? I don't remember if the BAMF. No, I don't think the BAMF had the forward assist bolt release thing. It just looks really strange. It looks like it comes out of like a.
It looks like a motorcycle, a hot rodded motorcycle.
Yeah, or like a Covenant weapon from Halo.
Yeah,
it looks really strange. And then the Evolve has an automatic magazine losing device. So when you hit the magazine release, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Hold on a second. It was.
Yeah.
It has like a really huge muzzle brake, and it has I believe it's a
automatic Cobalt Advantage reload system.
Yeah. So it's a the
small lever mounted at the top of the magazine well that is triggered when the follower and your empty magazine makes contact with it. As the lever is actuated, it actually also traps the bolt behind it, and then the magazine drops. I don't know, man. I want to drop the magazine myself.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's when the bolt comes back. When basically it's a combined bolt release magazine release, or a bolt catch magazine release. So when the last round of your magazine is ejected, the follower comes up. It hits this weird mechanical lever thing, and it holds the bolt back and drops the magazine simultaneously. And then when you put a new magazine in, it automatically drops the bolt, which I guess is like great if you want a race gun, right? If you want like an IPSC race gun, maybe that is just the ticket. But in terms of like an actual duty weapon, that seems like a great way to just lose magazines.
Now, Daniel Defense has two offerings coming up here. They have the DDM4 300S. Now, is that in 300 Blackout?
Yeah, it's a 300 Blackout. You guessed it.
Is the bloom kind of off the rose?
I don't know. People like 300 Blackout, I guess. I guess there's two reasons I guess you would want to have it. If you lived in a state where you couldn't hunt with 223 because of a restriction, 300 Blackout might be a good cartridge for like deer. And then if you want to do that cool suppressed subsonic stuff.
I will say I like the 300 Blackout for suppressor stuff. I have a friend who has the break action. I think it's H&R or NEF in 300 Blackout suppressed. and the hammer falling is louder than the shot.
Yeah, no, I mean they're cool guns, but people get really excited about 300 Blackout, and I think the real reason that 300 Blackout has taken off is it's really easy to do. You get a 308 barrel blank in a more or less standard twist. You ream it out, and then you use AR-15 magazines, AR-15 bolts, all that other stuff, and you're go. So I think that's why they're releasing that, is because it's easy to do. And then you have the DD5V1, which is their 7.62 entry. So they're finally coming out with an AR-10-like thing, and it's sort of like it's basically designed. It appears to be designed to compete directly with the DPMS G2. It's got a shorter rear receiver than a standard AR-10. It's a bit lighter. It's in the same weight class as the DD-G2 or the DPMS G2, and so I think that's what it's intended to do. But a lot of people got really excited about that. That was a pretty big announcement this year.
Now, the Noreen Firearms, I don't even know that much about this gun. It kind of reminds me of an AR bolt action. The BN36, it's 7mm Remington Magnum.
I believe it's semi-auto. So these are it's like the Noreen Bad News. They had one in 30-06. They had one in 300 Win Mag. So I think this is the same basic platform, but in 7mm Rem Mag.
Okay.
And it's a giant AR that shoots a huge, anti-tank rifle cartridge. Not really, but yeah, shoots a big Magnum caliber. I mean, the unloaded weight of those guns, all of those guns, is pretty high. I think they're quoting 22-inch barrel and 9 pounds, and it's sort of like, what are you going to use that for?
Well, I don't know. I just kind of am reminded of the. Remember when they used to sell the uppers for 50 caliber for 50 BMG?
Yeah.
For ARs,
you take your AR-15 lower and you put like a 50 BMG upper.
Yeah, like that. That's really great for it. That's good. I'm really going to trust that when someone's taking off a 50 BMG. I've seen pictures of when a guy took a bolt in the throat from a 50 BMG. I think from a what's the name? Hesse.
Yeah, that would be it. Yeah. The Hesse 50s were not very reliable. I'm going to share a secret with you. I don't like shooting 50 BMG.
Not a lot of people, especially with something that doesn't reciprocate like a Barrett.
I mean, I've shot like an M82, but I just don't enjoy it. In order to make those things have recoil that's not off the charts, you have to have this huge muzzle brake on the front, and I don't like shooting things with huge muzzle brakes. So
right.
Unless it's my AK-74, which is like one of my favorite guns, but that's beside the point. But yeah, no, I don't know. It just seems silly to me. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. These are actually totally new guns. They're not based on like an AR-15. So I just kind of wonder like what they're intended. Are they intended to be used in like some kind of competition or something? Right. Because I wouldn't go hunting with that. It's too heavy.
So before we wrap up here, we have the rumors section. Now, the first one here, the IWI Tavor in 308. Now, for me, I kind of share some concerns with some people. What happens with a bullpup when you have a really, really high-pressure cartridge and you have some sort of like case eruption or case separation or something like that, and your cheek is right next to the chamber?
I don't think I've ever heard of... First of all, I don't think that's any bigger of a danger with 308 than it is 5.56. And second of all, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody actually suffering something like that. And if they did, it was probably like, Herder, look at my SKS bullpup, or Herder, look at my, AK bullpup, or whatever it is, right? With a purpose-designed bullpup, I don't think I've ever heard of that happening. Not to saying it can't, and I've seen KBs with things like FS2000s, right? I've seen that happen, and it doesn't have enough energy to get through even a plastic shell. So right. I don't think it's really going to be that big of a problem, especially if you have a reinforced or Kevlar-lined cheek piece on there. At the same time, I don't think the Tavor in 308 is coming. If you look at the way IWI does business, they don't tend to sit on things and then announce them to the U.S. civilian market.
Right.
You tend to know that something exists in IWI long before you ever see them talk about it in the context of the U.S. civilian market. Is there a solicitation for a 308 Tavor? I don't think there is one, because that's what they would design it for. They would design it for the Israeli military. If the Israeli military wanted that, I, so far as I know, not that I can remember, there isn't any kind of solicitation for that, so I don't think we're going to see that gun. I know a lot of people want to see it, but I don't think we're going to see that gun.
So what about the CZ805, or you said the 806 perhaps, Bren A2 carbine?
Yeah, so the A2 is just going to be the rifle Bren. That's just the rifle length Bren. So when the carbine or rifle Bren comes into the country, that'll be what that is. The 806 is basically, I'm going to use strong language here. Basically, the 805 is not a very good rifle. It has a lot of flaws. One of them being that it's really heavy, like really heavy for no good reason. And that was because the upper receiver on that gun was originally intended to be made out of polymer, like a G36, but for whatever reason they couldn't make the receivers out of polymer, and so it's dimensioned. It's too expensive because it's dimensioned really strangely because they're trying to mill out a shape that was designed for polymer. And so the 806 Bren 2 is not a 308 gun. It's a 5.56. It's the same kind of gun as a Bren 805, but they have lightened the lower receiver. They've put a really, really ugly stock on it that's supposed to be lighter. And then the upper receiver is a totally new contour where it's lighter and it's easier to make with the machining operations that they're doing. Because I don't even think those things are extruded. The uppers on those things are totally machined at a billet, is my understanding. So, yeah, that's basically what the 806 is. And I suspect they'll be showing that at SHOT Show.
Now, your last two here before we wrap up, the Colt CK901 and the SMG Guns FG42 Tactical?
Yeah. The CK901 is basically a Colt 901, like 308, a rifle, except it's chambered in 7.62x39. So this is another kind of one for the AK section, but it's in rumors because we don't know it's going to be at SHOT. They announced that gun existed, and then no one's seen hide nor hair of it. I didn't see it at last SHOT Show. I'm kind of hoping they'll have brought it this SHOT Show so that somebody will get a chance to look at it. And I mean, that's really all it is. It's their 901 modular rifle, but with a lower receiver that can accept. I think it's supposed to shoot AK mags. It's supposed to use AK mags. And then the FG42 Tactical is SMG Guns makes an FG42 reproduction. It's actually a really neat project. And one of the things that they have had in-range TP, which is Ian and Carl, Ian McCullum and Carl Carsata, they have had them they're testing an FG42 in two-gun, shooting the hell out of it. And I'm sort of hoping that FG42 Tactical is brought to SHOT or another prototype or something, because they're working on that project. I am not particularly interested in the tactical FG42, but a lot of people are excited about it.
It's really cool.
It's a really cool gun. The FG42 is a really cool gun. And actually, in that vein, there's also the Hill and Mac Gunworks. I forgot to mention it. There's this, or put it in the show notes, but there's the Hill and Mac Gunworks STG-44. I'm certain they'll have something of that at SHOT. I don't know if they'll have a prototype yet, because I don't know that they have one, but
I think they were planning on doing an MP38 too.
Hill and Matt Gunworks?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Not them. There was another company overseas that was doing that.
Chiappa was importing 22 STG-44 and an MP40, but I'm not sure exactly which one you're referring to. Hill and Matt Gunworks is in the U.S., and they're making a rifle that is not an exact replica of an STG-44, but it uses the same operating mechanism.
The other one they were doing was the Set-Me L.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I think, they're just making parts kits. They're just taking parts kits and bending new flaps.
We don't need no stinking badges. Oh, you meant patches. Yeah, I'd love me some high-quality patches. Where? Patriot Patch Company, you say? Vámonos to patriotpatch.co. Whoa! You say they have T-shirts too? Vámonos to patriotpatch.co.
So, Nathaniel, thanks for coming on, and where can people find you?
Well, I'm a contributor over at the firearmblog.com, so I'll have my author page over there, and you can go check out my writing there. And then I also have a blog that I don't update very much with a really long name. It's 196,800 revolutions per minute. So you can go see some of my articles I've written a few years ago over there. I don't really update that blog very much, but...
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I think we had a pretty good discussion, and we'll find out what comes out after SHOT Show.
Thank you very much for having me, Ryan.
Gun Guy Radio says thank you and proudly displays artwork and graphics designed by Ryan Cross of Hunter of Design. hunterofdesign.com.
So that about wraps up this episode of Gun Guy Radio. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes so that you never miss a show, and please leave us a review there as well, gunguyradio.com/iTunes. Please consider joining the NRA and the Second Amendment Foundation. There are links there in the show notes. And don't forget to check out the other shows on the Firearms Radio Network. Also, be sure to check out the Patriot Patch Company, started by FRN's own Jake Challand and Ryan Cross. Patriot Patch Company offers high-quality 3D PVC vinyl patches with Velcro backing that is sure to satisfy any taste. Be sure to check them out at www.patriotpatch.co. This is Ryan Machad, and I'll see you next week.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv. Hey, since you're already listening to a show on the Firearms Radio Network, then you should check out the God and Guns podcast. Troy and Doug talk about guns from a Christian perspective and, of course, God. GodandGunsPodcast.com/iTunes. Subscribe now.